TFA fam, what is up? What is happening? We are on to week 6 waiver wire ads. Thankfully, this wasn't too brutal of a week in terms of injuries. There was some. Justin Jefferson left with a hamstring injury. James Conner left with a knee injury. And then I guess we had Khalil Herbert on Thursday night. He also left some injuries. And then Anthony Richardson also left in the first half with a AC injury. So I'll have to see on all of these injuries. But overall, it wasn't a terrible week. And then we had a Travis Kelce scare that ended up not being.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was, when I saw it, I'm like, oh, no. But,
Yeah, the non-contact.
yeah. But thankfully, he looks to be okay. So, anyways, this week we only have 2 teams on bye, thankfully. Packers and Steelers, because week 7, I think there's like 6, 7, 8 teams on bye. Like, it is ridiculous in week 7. But week 6, only 2, Packers and Steelers, which doesn't have huge fantasy implications for the most part. But let's go ahead and get into the streaming quarterbacks of the week. And it's not a great list. I'm just going to be honest with you, because there's not some great matchups here in terms of just players that are widely available. Gardner Minshew, like we mentioned, with Anthony Richardson possibly missing this upcoming week. He did come in relief today for Anthony Richardson, who suffered that AC sprain. Minshew ended up with completing 75% of his passes for 155 yards through 2 quarters. The Colts will head to Jacksonville, take on a defense that has allowed 13th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I think right now, likely, every league is different. So some leagues end up having some players that are out there that maybe shouldn't be. But overall, Gardner Minshew is likely available in probably everybody's league outside of 2 quarterback formats. And even in some 2 QB leagues, he's likely available. So he's probably the one that makes the most sense. But past that, you have Matthew Stafford, who's probably widely owned. But if he's not, 57% rostered. Stafford had another, I would say, pedestrian day, 21 of 37, but for 222 and two scores. Cooper Kupp did return and instantly earned 12 targets, which was a team high. This was the Rams will take on a Cardinals defense that allowed the 5th most fantasy points to quarterback. So if Stafford is sitting out there, he 100% would be my ad. But like I said, 57% rostered is kind of tricky. So I did want to mention him, though, either way. And then Baker Mayfield, don't feel great about it, but he is rostered in 19% of leagues. They are coming off their bye week this week. I do think that Mike Evans will be able to play. They said it was a minor hamstring injury. And so it doesn't sound like it's anything too serious. The bye week should allow him enough time to play. So the Lions defense has allowed the 14th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Obviously, you don't want to run the football against the Lions, but you can throw the football. So Baker Mayfield is an option. And then some honorable mentions. I don't have the stones to say Mac Jones, but he does have a great matchup this week against the Raiders. If you were absolutely desperate, Mac Jones could be an option, but Jesus, he looks awful right now. But this is a good matchup against the Raiders. And then Josh Dobbs, he's also available, and he's only rostered in 21% of leagues, but it's not a great matchup against the Rams. The Rams have been pretty good. They are bottom half of the league in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. But other than that's kind of the list. Like, there's not a lot of other great options that are sitting out there that really stood out to me. Sam Howell's playing the Falcons, but the Falcons are really good against opposing quarterbacks. They've been really good against the pass. So he's not somebody I really want to play. So, I mean, this is kind of the list.
Yeah, it's going to get gross once we get to tight end. So we'll kick it over to the running backs first. The number 1 ad here is going to be Amari DiMercato. Kev, got to give you the props here. If you guys caught the deep ad video that Kevin did earlier last week, you would have heard this name already, and you might have already picked him up. But we have to wait and see what's going to happen with the severity of James Conner's knee injury. I do want to say, however, that Keontae Ingram, who opened the year as the backup, has missed back-to-back weeks due to a neck injury. So if he returns in week 6 and James Conner misses time, this might not be like a complete workhorse type of role for DiMercato. You might look at the box score, see that, Keontae Ingram is nowhere to be found because he's been injured. So if he comes back, I do think it's going to be a little bit of a split, but I would assume that DiMercato is going to see the lion's share of the work, but it might not just be an absolute smash spot for DiMercato. Like I said, if Keontae Ingram comes back, it is good to see that when Conner did go out, Corey Clement did not get any work. It was all DiMercato. So he's going to be the clear ad at running back for the week. And then Roschon Johnson, obviously we have to mention that he is in concussion protocol, but with Khalil Herbert missing what looks like to be several weeks with his injury, he's at least worth the ad because I think once he is healthy, he's going to be the guy in this backfield. That's why I also have Deonta Foreman on here. He has been a healthy scratch the past couple weeks, but with Roshan Johnson and concussion protocol, these guys haven't been making it back like the week after in a lot of these instances when guys have been picking up concussions. So Foreman's worth an ad. They did bring Kev, your boy, Darrington Evans, an oldie but a goodie, a classic there. They did sign him to the practice squad, so it does look like we're going to be missing Khalil Herbert for an extended period of time. Then just some other names to mention here along with the ads. Keyshawn Vaughn, you mentioned the Bucs are going to be coming off of their bye week. We did see Keyshawn start to take over, or at least show that he could take over as the backup running back, where earlier in the year was a little bit of Sean Tucker and Chase Edmonds. Looked like it was Keyshawn in that role in week 4 when we last saw him. Kendra Miller, also worth an ad. His production is interesting because obviously you look at that score, you think what Kendra Miller did was all in garbage time, which wasn't necessarily the case. The majority of his runs did come while the Saints were up heavy against the Patriots, but he added another 53 yards through the air, and most of that came in the second quarter when the game wasn't completely out of hand just yet. So it wasn't all garbage time production for Kendra Miller. We still have Jamal Williams and IR. Obviously, Alvin Kamara has racked up a ton of touches over the past couple of years. So I think Kendra Miller is still a fine ad for those that are hurting at running back. And then just some of the usual suspects here, the guys in the handcuff plus territory: Chuba Hubbard, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Gainwell, and Tyjae Spears. Tyjae Spears had another nice day today. Had 69 total yards, I think, on just 11 touches and a score. And he's been looking more explosive than Derrick Henry has. Henry has not looked the same to start this year. So Tyjae Spears is another name that is definitely worth a pickup. And then just some like straight handcuffs. Tank Bigsby, Eli Mitchell, although he has been banged up and injured. Ronnie Rivers, Rico Dowdle, and then on the watch list, Keaton Mitchell. We talked about him last week. I think he did return to practice, but he has not been activated off of IR yet. He's worth looking at because it's not like Gus Edwards or Justice Hill have either of them have looked particularly great while Dobbins has been out. And then I threw Michael Carter on here just because we saw him play 20 snaps to Dalvin Cook's 11. Although the majority of those snaps did come with Michael Carter running routes. He didn't see it. I think he only had 1 carry, but he ran 17 routes to Dalvin Cook's 4. So is this a case of Breece Hall, not wanting to use him completely in the passing downs yet, and Michael Carter kind of just getting that work? If that's the case, then obviously Carter isn't going to be a great ad by any means. But if Michael Carter is now going to be the guy backing up Breece Hall, that is something we could take advantage of, especially with the running back landscape being as poor as it is. And the other one I didn't put on here, Jaleel McLaughlin. I'm assuming he's going to be owned in the majority of most competitive leagues. And then Eric Gray did take over the RB2 spot for the Giants today, but seems like Saquon Barkley should be back sooner rather than later. So I didn't put Eric Gray on here because of that. But if, for whatever reason, if Saquon Barkley were to miss some extended time, Eric Gray did take over for Gary Brightwell in that RB2 spot behind Matt Breida.
Yeah, I think overall, love to see Emery DiMarcado really have a good day today. I actually played him a little bit in DFS too. Picked him up in most of my leagues, so felt good seeing that pay off so quickly. I was not expecting that to come through. That was more of a stash and just automatically paid off. So yeah, we'll see on that. But let's jump over to the wide receivers. And it starts things off with Josh Downs, something that we have talked quite a bit about, but only rostered 9% of leagues. Down continues to have a strong role and looks like the second best wide receiver on this team. He nearly broke 100 yards today, hauling in all 6 of his targets for 97 yards against the Titans. He's really making the most of his role from the slot, and he's on pace for over 100 targets. And to me, he should be rostered in any 12-team league. He should be 100% rostered at this point. He continues to have a role. He's on pace to have over 100 targets. Players like this, and I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on. And so Josh Downs is a must add. And then next up is Curtis Samuel, rostered in 14% of leagues. Samuel put together another wide receiver 2 performance this week. He has put back-to-back 18 fantasy points performances and has seen 15 targets over the last 2 weeks. And this week, Samuel gets another strong matchup against the Falcons, who struggle to stop slot wide receivers. And Samuel has run 68% of his routes from the slot. So Curtis Samuel is in line to be another really good play this week. So if you're looking for a wide receiver this week, Curtis Samuel, and if he's sitting out there, definitely needs to be rostered. and likely is probably like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 this week against the Atlanta Falcons, because you do not throw the ball on the outside to the against the Falcons. You really want to target anything in the middle. So Curtis Samuel does make a lot of sense. Rashee Rice, not huge production, but had another 5 targets again today, hauling in 4 of them for 33 yards and a score. The Chiefs have an extremely favorable matchup over the next 4 weeks as well before their bye. They get 2 against the Broncos, the Chargers, and then the Dolphins. All of these are going to be, at least 2 of those are going to be really strong passing game scripts, and then the Broncos are the Broncos. So Rashee Rice definitely should be rostered. And then Quentin Johnston, 33%. If he was dropped because of bye weeks or lack of involvement, he needs to be added. I think with the bye week that you can really start to see them install him a little bit more with Mike Williams out for the season. So I know a lot of these guys for 12-team leagues probably aren't sitting out there, but I did want to mention them in case they were. Josh Reynolds, 23% roster. I could see him maybe being a player that would possibly drop, but with Amon-Ra St. Brown status up in the air for week 6, Reynolds figures to be heavily involved in a matchup against the Bucs. Reynolds saw 5 targets today. He caught 4 of them for 76 yards and a score. He has now scored 10 or more PPR points in 4 of the 5 weeks that he's played. Next up, this is a player that I guarantee you is not rostered in any league, and that is Trenton Irwin from the Cincinnati Bengals, 1%. This really is going to depend on T. Higgins' health, but Irwin saw the second most targets on the team and caught 8 of them. 8 of the 10 targets that he saw for 60 yards against the Cardinals. Joe Burrow finally looked like Joe Burrow again. That was somebody that I talked about and actually had a lot of him in daily fantasy. And so it really worked out. Him and Chase really went off today. But Irwin kind of low-key went under the radar, scoring 14 PPR points on 10 targets today. So, and next week they face a Seattle Seahawks defense that allows the second most PPR points to wide receivers. So Trenton Irwin, if he's sitting out there, which I'm sure that he is, definitely should be looking to add him. Next up, we'll have to monitor Justin Jefferson's situation, who left with a hamstring injury and did not return. But the Vikings get a great matchup against the Chicago Bears. I think the most likely option is going to be KJ Osborne, who's rostered in less than 20% of leagues. He was targeted 9 times today. He caught 5 of them for 49 yards and was close to hauling in a touchdown as well. And then Brandon Powell saw 6 targets, hauled in 4 of them for 43 yards. I think both of them you could possibly look to add. I think Osborne is the most likely of the one that you'd want to add, because if Justin Jefferson is out, this kind of bumps everybody up in the pecking order. So I think that's the way that I would look at this. And then obviously a great matchup against the Bears. And then lastly, Tank Dell got knocked out with a concussion today. Hate to see that, but Mechie could finally get a shot to display his abilities. Obviously missed all of last year, but he was targeted 2 times today for 20 yards against the Falcons. Next week they take on the Saints, but he's only rostered in 1% of leagues. So he's another player that I would maybe looking to add. And then past that, maybe like Xavier Hutchinson, maybe he gets a little bit more run with the Houston Texans. If Tank Dell were to miss time too, I think those would be kind of the guys that logically would make the most sense. And then 14 teams or more, Jalen Hyatt, Trey Palmer. Especially if Mike Evans were to miss, Trey Palmer would become much more interesting, would probably slide up into that role. But I think Mike Evans plays. And then Jonathan Mingo, I just don't have a lot of excitement. I know he was targeted quite a bit today, had like a decent day in PPR formats, but I'm not a fan of this offense. And then Justin Ross finally decided to get involved. He did see 4 targets today, hauled in 2 of those, came close to a touchdown as well. So Justin Ross, again, 14 team or deeper type of player right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that would make you feel best about Jonathan Mingo is just kind of thinking that the Adam Thielen revival can't last forever. So some of that production is going to have to go elsewhere. Like you said, Mingo was targeted a ton. So I think he's definitely an interesting look. Like I said, with tight end streams in week 6, it is gross out here this week. The clear number 1 ad is going to be Logan Thomas here. Hopefully he's available in your leagues and you can snatch him up if you need a tight end. But heading into week 5, the Falcons were allowing the 8th most half PPR points per game to tight ends. And then they allowed 8 for 87 and 1 to the Texans tight end, the majority of that going to Dalton Schultz. Thomas has at least 3 catches for 40 yards in 3 of his 4 games. In the game he didn't hit those marks, he did find the end zone. He was tight end 9 in points per game heading into week 5, and that's obviously going to change after he went for 9 for 77 and 1 on Thursday Night Football. Next up would be Chig Okonkwo. It's really hard to trust this offense, but Okonkwo does have at least 4 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. Saw 9 today. against Indy. Baltimore was allowing the fewest points per game to the position heading into the week, but they basically haven't faced anyone of note outside of David Njoku, and he went 6 for 46 with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who in that game ended up throwing for less than 125 yards. So I think he is worth a look if Logan Thomas isn't available. K. Doughton, I mean, it is another one that's hard to trust. You would feel a little bit better about it if Mike Evans were out, but he does at least have an 82% route participation. He's ninth in fantasy points per target, has at least 4 targets in 2 of his last 3 games. And heading into week 5, Detroit was allowing the 5th most half PPR points per game to tight ends. And this last one here is just straight up desperation mode. Kylan Granson for the Colts. And this one is actually only in play if Mo Alley-Cox and Jelani Woods are out. Mo Alley left the game today with an injury. Jelani Woods has been on IR with a hammy injury. He is eligible to be activated, just hasn't been activated yet. Granson does have at least 4 targets in all but 1 game this year, so I guess it could be worse. But hopefully, if you need someone at the tight end position, Logan Thomas is available because, like I said, it is just it's ugly out here, Kev.
I would throw one more name into the ring. It would be Dalton Schultz, only rostered in 36% of leagues. But, I mean, he saw 10 targets today, 7 catches, 65 yards, and a score. I will say this. I felt like that was much more game plan dependent because, like we talked about with the Falcons, you really attacked them in the middle. And I think that's where Dalton Schultz came in with was more of a game plan. Because before this, I mean, you're talking about a player who saw 3, 3, 7, and 4 targets. And this is a team that has thrown the ball a ton. But with Tank Dell out, that could help him, or likely to be out next week. That could help him get more targets within this offense. But Dalton Schultz, I think, as gross as this or as gross as the situation is at tight end position, somebody like that who can see that kind of target share, I think is at least worth an add. So he would be the other player that I'd probably add to that list for tight ends. But this week,
Yeah, the only reason why I didn't mention him on ESPN where I was looking, he was at 53%. So that's the only reason why I didn't mention him.
I think it just depends. Like I think for a lot of people, he probably is still rostered, but I didn't want to just not mention him. So let's answer a couple questions maybe. Raymond, what do we do with A-Chain? Ride it out or trade him, and for who? Like, this is wild because his efficiency is so out of this world, right? Just busting off long touchdowns, but he has that kind of speed. Like, is he Chris Johnson? Like, or I don't know, right? And it's just been kind of wild. I think Game Script has played it to. There was some reports. I don't know. I haven't been able to find much more on it. But a couple like the Twitter doctors were saying that they thought he might have had a high ankle sprain, but they ended up pulling him. But I haven't seen anything to substantiate that. But it has been a couple of people I saw mention that he got hurt. But obviously there was also a blowout, so maybe they just pulled him. So that is something we should be monitoring with that. I don't know if there's anything to that.
I did not see that.
But I saw a couple reports about that, but like there was other people saying that they haven't seen really anything official on that. So we'll have to monitor that because if that were to be the case, that would be a big time issue for him. And then I think Jeff Wilson, who should be coming back anytime, would move quickly up into the players you'd want to look at. But overall, I still think you have to hold on to A-Chain. I mean, because A-Chain, I keep calling him that A-Chain. I do, but it is tough because that efficiency is eventually going to drop. So. Uncle Ted McLaughlin is a beast. Yeah, he was really good for the most part on limited touches. Alexis, you either had a good week or a really disappointing week. Lots of disappointments, a lot of booms. I mean, yeah. For the most part, yes, there were some players that absolutely went nuclear this week. But it was good to see some of the people bounce back, like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, for that matter. Tyreek Hill had another huge day, obviously, and then we saw Justin Fields, DJ Moore on Thursday night went off. So. DeMarcado is a top weight ever, sure. Yes, I agree. I think for the most part at running back. I mean, I would say if Roshan was out there, he would be the top guy that I'd want. Just because moving forward, I think he also projects really well too. So, Tequila Wolf, no worse feeling. 0-5. I was 0-7, won the chip last year, so I'm trying to keep up. Yeah, I don't think you can lose faith yet. So, I think
my goodness,
he's got to keep going and see what you can do. So, Alexis and Jacob scored about 45 points with a matchup this week. Good luck with that. Hey, it could happen. Like Angels of the outfield.
Yeah.
Bobby. Connor getting hurt breaks my heart. I mean, I don't think it's anything major. Like, it doesn't sound like it's anything. And I mean, he's had a history of MCL injuries and a lot in his career. So it could be something where he misses a couple of weeks, but it's also possible he's back next week. Like I know he came back, he had his helmet on, he was trying to run, and they ended up not putting him back in the game. So I don't know. But right now, I don't think it's a long-term injury for James Conner, but this is something you should always expect with James Conner because he always seems to miss some time with
Yeah.
injuries. So that's the only frustrating thing with him. And then non PPR for DJ Moore, Ayuk, Judy, or D Hop, Pittman, or Brees. I want that Brees side. I mean, I think Brees is what he did today. I mean, monster performance, 170 yards. Yeah, I mean, he finally did get all the. He had like almost 70% of the RB rush attempts. I think I saw over. It was like 56, 57% of the snaps. So yes, like I want that side of it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So
Especially in non PPR, like Judy doesn't really do anything for me. Um, DJ Moore, is that run really going to continue? And as we're seeing right now with with this one, you always run the risk of either it being a Debo week, a Kittle week, or a CMC week. So like Ayuk is kind of up and down.
yeah. So and then Ford, I don't know. Like he hasn't looked. I am legitimately nervous about Kyron Williams because he has been really inefficient as a runner, and we kind of saw a little bit of that today. But then only seeing like two, I think it was 2 targets, is also a little bit concerning as well because obviously Cup coming back, seeing 12, Puka I think had 10 targets. So like a lot of that production is going to get funneled through them, and I just don't know if there's going to be enough production there for Kyron to maintain. So he might be a sell high or a sell at this point. I don't know. It makes me super nervous trusting him, and then it could get to a point where they look to somebody else at least as in the running game. Maybe he falls back into like a pass catching running back or something like that, third down back. It is not handling early down work. So that is that. But anyways, that being said, let's go ahead and get out of here. Hope everybody has a good rest of the week 5. Hope everybody let us know in the comment section below if you have any questions, maybe who to pick up, who to add, who to drop, whatever, trade questions, anything like that. We'll be sure to get to it. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for future content. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.